And if you think the Dark Saga lights up for the Ripper, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, that is Geoff, and we're talking about Iced Earth on this episode.
Iced Earth. Which is not what they sound like at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're way heavier than anything that they ever did.
Well, you know, it's weird because we talk a lot about image and bands on this show, and like you look at Demon Hunter, right? Like the band doesn't live up to the image of the band. I kind of feel the same way about Iced Earth because they're always on tour packages with bands that are like way heavier than they are.
Yeah, because they're essentially Iron Maiden 2.0.
I was expecting like a Skeleton Witch type situation here, and I did not get that.
No, my first thought was Iron Maiden, and that's what we got. I mean, I was totally fine with it.
It's fine. We'll talk about it.
Well, before we start talking about Iron Maiden is what we got, I want to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We're on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, so if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening, and now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
We love 5-star reviews here on Discography Discussion. It is a way for us to show up in podcast results. So if you like the show and you listen, give us a review. I don't care what it is. Just
yeah, we
give
even
us
like 3-star reviews.
We do.
We love them all.
We'll take it.
We love our children equally.
So we got a comment on Podbean. This in regards to episode 70, Arch Enemy. Nice hearing your guys' opinions on Arch Enemy's discography. I personally love them and their work, but I like hearing everyone's opinion. Nice work. That's from Melissa0927. Well, thank you very much. We also got a tweet from Lesser of Two Equals. It looks like I'm going to be able to interview Arch Enemy in Reading this September, so this might be a fun listen to give me a little something to work with. I'd actually probably rather chat up Goat Whore, but maybe I can swing both. Well, you definitely need to swing both if you can, and if you can't, I mean, Goat Whore. Geoff, come on.
Oh, Goat Whore is the shit. I'm not Geoff, but I just had to say that.
Yeah, my shit that I left upstairs. Ooh.
We're never going in that bathroom again.
Oh my God, it's so bad in there.
So we got a tweet from AC, Alt 1, episode 68, Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter was able to get my attention, but never able to keep it. Welcome to our world. Always had a meh feeling about them. Good on you, Geoff, for admitting to liking shit. Trivium's Shogun. I'm not sure which is worse. That album of The Silence in the Snow, a discussion for another episode.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Dude, I fucking love Trivium. I can't help myself.
Let's do it.
Especially Shogun.
Hey, you know what? I can guarantee that we'll get that episode done in
No, I like Ascendancy
3 to 6 months from now.
I like Ascendancy as well. Don't you like Ascendancy? You gotta at least tolerate that one.
Well, I'm going to save it, man, because this is destined to happen now.
Oh, okay, good.
We have to do it. We don't have a choice now.
Are we gonna do the Killing Joke?
Maybe.
Steven?
Maybe.
All it takes is one bad day.
Yeah, if you guys haven't had a chance, we have a very cool episode on Patreon about Steven Marksaro's band called the Unteachers. And we've turned into a bunch of fanboys because we like what real emo should sound like. We're talking about emo from like the 90s. And if you like that kind of stuff, this is you definitely want to check out that Patreon episode.
Got an email from Jeremy Prince. So, Dan, I've made it through the Pig Destroyer, Death Clock, and Ghost. Heard you trash Mortification and Demon Hunter, though I actually agree with you as both. But you've gone too far. I'm listening to the He Is Legend episode.
Oh, shit.
And you crap on Dead Poetic. How dare you?
How dare you, Dan?
New Medicines is one of the best albums ever, damn it. And one of my favorite vinyl releases in a while. I'm done. I'm out. I just can't with you. Parentheses, can't wait to hear the next episode.
Hell yes! He had you hanging there for a second, didn't
Well, we
he?
got you by the balls now. Yeah, I don't have a lot of good things to say about that album, but Taste the Red Hands is really good. But Jeremy, you do you, man. You do you.
So, Dan, tell me about Iced Earth.
Well, I don't get to say this very much on the podcast, but Iced Earth is an American heavy metal / power metal outfit that has put out a shit ton of albums.
11 albums, I believe it is.
Whew.
Isn't that the metal definition of a literal shit ton?
1990.
Is their first. And they've
To
been around
now.
since 1984.
That's a long-ass time.
Yeah, it is.
28 years.
But were you alive in 1984 when the band was formed? It just
I
under a
was
different
not
name.
alive.
So this entity known as Iced Earth that started as a different name has been around on this earth, this iced earth,
Longer than Dan has.
We know I'm an old fart, so I've been around for it.
Well, Jeff's like 96, so
That's right.
this record came out when you were like in what, your early 70s?
Yeah, so I just drink the blood of virgins. That's how I stay young.
Gotcha.
Okay, cool.
Well, we talk about metal on this show, so there should be plenty of virgins for you to line up and. Oh, did I say that on the podcast?
Jennifer playfully wrestled her friend to
Okay,
the
anyway,
ground.
moving on from that shit.
1990, self-titled Iced Earth.
1990, Iced Earth, bitches.
Yeah, now we moved on to other shit because this is musically, I actually really enjoyed it.
Really?
Vocally, I wanted to like rip out this fucker's windpipe. I couldn't stand it.
Wouldn't that make the vocals better?
Yes, it would.
Jeff, tell me how you really feel. Okay, so
I mean, if I'm going to do King Diamond,
Yeah.
I'm at least going to do it well.
Well, not these guys. They're like, let's see, how shitty can we do this?
I'm going for that King Diamond thing. Sounds good, right? Well, I mean, it does when he does it.
God, it's so bad.
yeah, like I mean, I like the music.
Yeah, the music's really good.
You know,
Especially
it
when you
is.
think about it, it's 1990. I mean, granted, it's still power metal, but I think it's on the cutting edge of power metal for 1990.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there weren't a lot of bands that were trying to sound like this. And that's the thing about Iced Earth that kind of got me off on the wrong foot. Because obviously, I'm, like 4 years old. Obviously, I didn't buy this on day one.
You mean in 1990, right?
He's
Right.
still 4 years old.
Actually, I was 4 years old in 1990. But I wasn't buying this or anything. I heard this band probably circa 2002, 2003. And they were always on like these tour packages with bands that were much more extreme than they were. So I got this impression of like Iced Earth must be this like badass thrash death metal type hybrid. And the band that I was thinking of was Skeleton Witch. But Skeleton Witch, they are not.
No, they're Iron Maiden 2.0.
They are the new Iron Maiden, in case you were wondering.
I wasn't aware we needed a new Iron Maiden.
You don't need one. Especially not with this shit.
Well, this album. And maybe the following. And then shit will get real.
So, I mean, musically it's fine. John Schaefer, who is kind of the mastermind behind Iced Earth, again, very similar to Iron Maiden in that, the guitar player does everything. However, there's this guy named Gene Adam on lead vocals. To call his vocals annoying is being really nice. He doesn't enunciate in like normal, enjoyable ways. He's trying to capture this like King Diamond type vocal that's not working for him. And it takes a record that's like basically thrash influenced power metal and makes it like not enjoyable.
Yeah, this guy's... His vocals just suck balls. Gene was with the band when they were still... Because before they were Iced Earth, they were Purgatory. And Purgatory was in the local scene down in Florida for 5-6 years, I think, before
Before they were Iced Earth.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like the guy hasn't had time to, sharpen his knives and, get everything on the up and up. But no, this is
I'm
really,
not saying dude's not a great vocalist now.
I am.
Like, maybe he is, but like...
No, he's retired.
Okay.
Thank God.
This is bad.
It's really bad.
I don't have, like... I mean, I don't say that too much on the podcast, like, straight up, like, make a definitive statement, but, like, his vocals ruined this fucking record for me.
Wow,
And-
that's normally me saying that.
Yeah, and the music is good. Like, there's no denying that. Like, it's straight ahead. It's got cool... It's got that metal gallop. It's got that... You got those thrash solos. You know, it's intense, but again, when the dude starts singing, I'm just done. I'm just not into it.
See, now I'm starting to commiserate with you on where you were at with Living Sacrifice.
Yeah.
Because I liked Iced Earth so much, I was able to discount the vocals enough to that I just didn't pay attention.
Okay, fair enough.
And because I know that's how you treat Non-Existent to a certain extent, is you're like, well, you know, I still love, you know, Living Sacrifice. I mean, I do too.
The music's great, but yeah, the vocals leave a lot to be desired.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's much easier for you to listen to Non-Existent, just how I feel like it's probably much easier for me to listen to the self-titled by Iced Earth.
I would take Non-Existent's vocals over this any day.
I don't think I'd go that far, personally.
I mean, it wouldn't sound good over the record, but like, neither does this shit. You know?
Yeah,
that
but-
weird high-pitched, like, King Diamond shit. Like, I just...
Hey, there's a crow in here.
I can't do it, man. Like, I'm not into it, and I just don't understand. Again, it's a quality control issue.
Yeah,
How many people listen to this and were like, this is good, let's cut it?
enough people to...
Enough people for the band to continue, right? The first Iced Earth album is really a mixed bag. And there's a lot of really good shit to say about it. Like, it's got really cool melodic passages in it, which I like. I like the thrash sensibility that's in the early Iced Earth stuff that kind of disappears over the course of their career.
They got older.
So, I mean, I appreciate that it's a heavy record, but that's about it. Like, this is, when I want to listen to Iced Earth, this is not my first go-to.
Oh, it's not for me either, even though I'm fine with the album, even though I can't stand Gene's vocals. I can totally understand that, because it's not the first album I pick out whenever I go and want to listen to them.
Unlike Arch Enemy, who we just talked about, who made us suffer with a vocalist we didn't like for 3 albums, Gene's gone after this first record. And it's not really like, I don't think we need to really tell the story as to why. I think it's pretty obvious. So instead they hired a guy named John Greeley for their follow-up record, 1992's Night of the Stormrider. This is a step in the right direction. Vocals are better. They're not amazing, but they're better. More orchestral.
I kind of feel like you have to have that in a really good power metal album.
Well, yeah, it's more gaudy. Whereas the first Iced Earth album was kind of bare bones. Like, one of the things I complain about it is that it sounds really thin and doesn't just drop. You know, like, I feel like a metal album from the 90s should. And it's not like Night of the Stormrider drops, really. But it takes those more melodic elements, those more self-indulgent elements that you get from power metal, but it owns them. It says, yeah, this is the real Iced Earth. This record is 10 times the record that the self-titled was. I think they definitely stuck to high fantasy on this one.
Oh, yeah.
Which was better, because on the first Iced Earth album, there's like a song about getting stabbed in the subway in New York.
Maybe that really happened to one
And
of them.
I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? But whatever, you know, it's fine. But like, they stuck to high fantasy, which is kind of a staple of power metal. And I just gotta say this early in the episode, is that, like, I like Iced Earth. I like the idea
More
of Iced Earth more than I like what I actually get. And that goes into something we talk about a lot on the show, is just kind of like image versus reality. Iced Earth is a band that is, again, I hate to say it, trying to be Iron Maiden in a lot of ways. So, you know, you can find a lot of lyrics based on literature. You can find a lot of stuff that's based in high fantasy, and that's totally fine. I like that stuff. But I just kind of feel like you have a group together of amazing musicians that don't really see eye to eye on a few core concepts. So what bugs me the most is that they're just kind of like, do we really want to say it? Do we want to say that they're kind of a B-grade power metal band? And I say that because, like, I've been listening to 2 bands while listening to Iced Earth to kind of get myself in the mindset. because power metal is not my go-to. I think anybody that listens to the show, that's not going to be a surprise to them. I think that they're just kind of like a B-grade power metal band in comparison to like bands like Blind Guardian. And there's this other band I listen to called Divine Fire, which mixes like Gothenburg death metal with power metal, to really good results. And I don't feel like Iced Earth really hits that. I think that they're kind of like 10 or 15 years behind what was going on in metal at the time. And maybe that was an intentional choice, and that's totally fine. You can play whatever you want to play. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to like totally be into it. So like Night of the Stormrider is great, is a great record, especially when compared to the pile of shit that was the self-titled. So they're definitely going in the right direction. But things get a little different when we get to their third album.
Yeah, Burnt Offerings.
Hang on, Geoff. The Exorcist is coming.
Well, to a certain
I've
extent,
been waiting all week to make that joke.
they are kind of possessed. They're frustrated. I mean, they are now dealing with what unfortunately a lot of bands have to deal with, and that is being unhappy with the record making process and the label and all that kind of jazz.
I think it was also kind of a nobody giving a shit about what they were doing.
It was sitting on the back burner. I mean, there was 4 years in between, and he was frustrated as hell.
He was, and like it's frustrating because like the band essentially disappeared after Night of the Stormrider. And I mean, I guess it's a good thing that they reappeared because they had made like the strongest impression on the metal scene prior to that. And so I get the frustration and the things that they probably had to go through in order to get this third record out. So that's whenever they show up in 1995.
And they've recruited Matt Barlow, thank God.
Again, a much stronger vocalist. This band is really good at vocalist upgrades.
Yes.
For the most part. Me and Geoff are going to disagree on a few things later on, but for the time being, Matt Barlow was absolutely the shit. So in Burnt Offerings, they pretty much abandoned the concept of being like a heavy band or being an extreme metal band. And I think that was a really good choice stylistically for them because Burnt Offerings is the best part of metal. It's a dark record. Much darker than we had experienced on the previous two records. Which again, were kind of bare bones kind of records.
Yeah, but it finds a way to be, I think, even though it's darker, it's also more beautiful. Joe was talking about the intro on Burnt Offerings, and it's actually spoken word from Bram Stoker's Dracula. So Bram Stoker's Dracula.
We heard you the first time.
Well, I was saying it like I was Gary Oldman. Burnt Offerings is one of their best songs that ever. I mean, it's probably top 3 as far as my favorite songs that they've put out. And you can't not talk about Dante's Inferno. Holy fucking shit. 16 minutes plus badassery.
Well, it's Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
You have to do a minute for each layer.
It is so good.
You know, I got to this record, and I haven't listened to a lot of Iced Earth up until this week. But when I got to this album, I started to think of a band that I like that many people would also view as a mid-tier metal band. There is a group called Savatage. Most people would know them, or at least their brainchild, the people that write all their shit, is also the group that started the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. But throughout the 80s and a good portion of the 90s, they were releasing albums every year. And they had that fantasy thing, and it was kind of power metal. And I don't really have a reason why it was mid-tier. And I spent a lot of time listening to that band and trying to find the reason. And I don't know what it is about this band that on their third album, which is so far the best thing I've heard from them, it just sounds mid-tier. It doesn't sound like Iron Maiden. It sounds like somebody showed up to the party and Iron Maiden's in there and they're killing it. And they were like, all right, so check out what we got. Well, it's just not as good. And I'm using Iron Maiden as the example because they are the band that a lot of people say is the definitive power metal band.
I think they are the definitive power metal band, but I wouldn't. This is not a second tier release. This is the cream of the crop. It's one of my 3 favorite albums that they've put out. So I would definitely say this is a top tier release.
But there's just something about the band, something about the way it's presented. There's something here that is at an 8. And somebody heard it and said, leave it there. And nobody in the room said, well, we could do that a little bit different, and it's all of a sudden a 9 or a 10. And I don't know what it is. I have the same problem listening to Savatage. I can't tell you why this doesn't sound as grandiose as other bands. I don't know.
Yeah, see, I have to strongly, especially on this release, I have to strongly disagree. This is fucking epic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with Geoff on this one. I think this is the best record they put out yet. And to a lot of people, this is almost like the actual debut of Iced Earth. This was representative of what we were going to hear for the next 3 albums. I like Matt's delivery. I think he's equally powerful. Like, he's gruff and melodic when the situation calls for it. It might be a little cookie cutter, but it's so much better. Like, this is the first Iced Earth album that I listened to that I was like, okay, there's not something notably wrong with what would otherwise be a good record. This is the first time where I'm like, okay, I've got a little bit of that thrash, not as much as before, but I've got a little bit of that thrash, but the band is focused almost completely on melody, which gives them kind of that Iron Maiden edge. But they're still aggressive. It's still fun to headbang to these songs and sing along to them and just really go. And I loved this record because of that, and it was definitely like the highlight of my week of listening to the band that I was like, okay, I can get behind this.
Yeah, we're not surprised. I mean, it's definitely their darkest release, and that's
their most metal.
Yeah, it's their most metal release, and they do it well. And it's one of those things like we've kind of talked about it before with Dream Theater. When Dream Theater does metal, we're like, holy shit, why don't they do more of this? And that's kind of, there's times that I feel like that with Iced Earth. I'm like, I wish they would go back to doing this because they do it so well, in my opinion. I can listen to this album all day long on repeat over and over and over again.
Well, I think there's some similarities to Arch Enemy here that have to be kind of like, not that they sound the same, but just that like this is a band that picked a style and stuck to it. They never really go off into the progressive metal territory. When they do, it's definitely the mixed results.
Right.
And, the Iced Earth is not Dream Theater. They're not out to reinvent the wheel.
Oh, no, it's not what I meant, but I just meant, whenever we talk about, because when we talked with that episode with John Drake, when Dream Theater was doing the heavier side of things, they did it really well. And we just wish they did more of it. And I feel that a lot with Iced Earth, too. I feel like they do this style, better than they do anything else, for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. And it was really interesting to see where they went from this, because I thought this was great. And I was kind of hoping that this is going to be one of those bands that, they would stick to a good thing and just ride it out throughout their career. But unfortunately, they didn't really do that. We get to the Dark Saga, which came out, pretty close to... I mean, it was their most consistent as far as, actually, having a consistent sound, and the records not sounding too similar. So you get the Dark Saga in 1996.
About Spawn.
I don't personally have an issue with a record that's about Spawn. That's awesome. However, it's kind of like a more watered down sound. Like, how does a band like Iced Earth in 1996 playing power metal or traditional metal or whatever you want to call it, how do they really bridge the gap to the average listener? In their mind, it was to put this out.
Which was wrong.
which was not a good call. It's got a lot of similarities to Burnt Offerings.
It's like the
But
Burnt
it's like-
Offerings B-sides.
Yeah, and I use this analogy a lot, and I hope it's connecting with people by now. It's kind of like you took Burnt Offerings, if it was a glass of water, and poured that glass of water out on the floor. That's the Dark Saga. Like, it's got elements, it's got the same ingredients, but the end product is this kind of like very simplified, spread out, bare bones approach. It doesn't have the concentrated greatness that was Burnt Offerings. It's instead this kind of more simplistic, dumbed down version. And I have a lot of trouble connecting with it, even though I do like the storyline. Everybody from the 90s loves Spawn.
Right.
I don't think there's any dissension here.
No. And I even loved the movie.
Yeah.
With Michael Jai White, and he was fantastic. And I even like John Leguizamo in it.
But this one just kind of seems slow and boring, for lack of a better description.
Because it was slow and boring.
Yeah, it really was. Like,
And this
you've
is
got a great vocalist with a great band behind him.
And this is coming from a Iced Earth fanboy telling you that it's slow and boring.
It is. It's just not, it was the hardest record to get through,
Really.
in my opinion.
It wasn't the hardest for me, but it was definitely up there.
And again, I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with it objectively. It's not like they're playing bad notes or that the production sucks or that the singer's not good or anything like that. Like, they've got all those elements, but like, I think I said this off air earlier that like it's a group of really good musicians that aren't gelling. And so you get a record like The Dark Saga, which is obviously trying to be Burnt Offerings Part 2, but it's like a shitty sequel versus like it's like Jaws 2 instead of, The Empire Strikes Back. As far as sequels go, and it's an okay record. I think a lot of people got into Iced Earth off of this one, and I think that was partially due to the popularity of Spawn at the time, and that this was a band. This was their most modern lyrical concept that they had jumped onto.
So you mentioned that, and all I hear is the lead singer showed up with the story and said, we're going to write to this.
Oh, no, the singers of Iced Earth have historically never really written the lyrics.
Nope. John does essentially everything.
He does everything.
So
and everybody
John
else is
showed up
along
with
for the ride.
Spawn and said, we're going to write to this.
Pretty much.
Yep.
That's what it sounds like.
Pretty much. He bought some Spawn comic books and was like, we got to do this. And it sounds about how you'd think. The band's like, well, okay.
So thrash, chunk, 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 thrash, chunk, chunk, chunk.
It's not even thrash though. Like it's really dumbed down. Like it doesn't have any kind of ball busting impact. Like I can't look at the track listing and think of like this is the song that defines the record. It's just boring, slow bullshit.
Yeah, it's pretentious. They think they're being important, but they're being boring. It's like when that guy is given a dissertation and he thinks he is like the most important person in the room, and everybody's looking at their watch going, when can we leave?
Right, no joke. Like it's like, okay, I came here, I got my paycheck. What are we doing tomorrow?
Yeah. The funny thing is that one of the most popular songs that they have is on this album. And it's I Died For You, which is okay. But I don't understand the airplay that it gets, because it's definitely not one of my favorites, but that's just my personal opinion.
Well, if you look at the timeline, 95, Burnt Offerings, 96, The Dark Saga, obviously there wasn't a whole lot of thought and dedication and time put into it. Like,
Well, not necessarily. I mean, they had 4 years where he was dormant. He was writing material that whole time. He just didn't get any of it
so you
released.
think that The Dark Saga existed in some form?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I truly believe that. I believe that he was writing this material, and I think it was a conscious effort to have something a little bit more quote-unquote serious. This is the serious album. The other one was the angry album.
Well, and is this one of the bands that, you kind of start realizing that every decision that's made is just one guy's opinion?
Oh, it's totally that.
You know, just one guy's vision for this great band that he wants to have together.
Yeah, considering he's the only member consistent. I mean, it's his band.
It really is. And, you know, I guess that's okay, but yeah, I just wasn't impressed by the Dark Saga. Thank God the next record was Something Wicked This Way Comes.
By the pricking of my thumbs.
Which was a much better record.
I might have to admit that this is my favorite Iced Earth album. I really, 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 really love this album.
Well, it's more power. It's like an actual power metal album. And I don't know if the band ever marketed themselves as power metal, really. Before this, I don't really think that they did. I think that was just a name that we threw on it. Because it was the only way I could really describe it at the time. Because, I mean, you could call it traditional heavy metal, but like Black Sabbath, this ain't. You know, Iron Maiden, this ain't.
This is the first album that I look at and I go, that's Iced Earth. I mean, Burn Offerings is a fantastic album, but this is the first album that I was like, okay, this is their style. This is who they are. This is quintessentially Iced Earth. And it's one of the few times that I'm actually going to say that my favorite song on an album is an instrumental. But it's fucking epic. 1776. Oh my God. I was blasting the shit out of that on July 4th. Just smoking. I was smoking meat. Had some spare ribs going on the smoker. Blasting 1776. And people around me are like, what the hell's he doing? I'm like, I'm enjoying myself. That's what I'm doing.
I did that with The Glorious Burden, the whole album.
Okay.
You know, but we'll get to that later. But, like, it's definitely a good instrumental. Sets the tone. Iced Earth, kind of a patriotic band.
Yes, they are.
And you don't really see that much in metal. You see people that are very against the system. But you've got a band from America that's very American patriot, which I think is kind of unique considering the genre.
Well, there's still parts of the system they definitely don't like, and they'll tell you about it. But he's very proud to be an American and to be lucky enough to be able to have his opinions without being persecuted for it. And he's not afraid to tell you that.
Right.
Which is kind of unusual, because most people are not afraid to tell you about their opinions, but then they'll also tell you that they they hate the system.
Well, so this record is basically straight ahead. The songs aren't really connected to each other like we would get later on. But the last three songs are notable in the sense that they begin what would become kind of Iced Earth's signature, and that they had basically created their own fantasy story.
Yes.
Called Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is basically like the base concept is that humans were not the first people to live on the earth, and that there was this advanced society prior to humanity. You know, it's kind of generic stuff. Like, I realize that you guys think you're super brilliant for coming up with this, but like, I mean, it's kind of been done before, but that's okay. You know, it hadn't been really done before with a power metal, you know, heavy metal hybrid from the 90s, so that they had that going for them. And I didn't think that this was too bad, and that like it was a whole album, but it was like only 3 songs were connected to this storyline. So it was easy to get into, and it was a lot of fun. But as we'll go on in their career, it kind of becomes a little bit of like, this is just the beginning of the self-indulgence that we are going to have to put ourselves through.
Yeah, or as Dan is famously known for saying, up their own ass.
Oh, yeah.
So
the ass is strong with this one.
So this is my favorite of theirs. Where does it rank for you guys? Because I know we both said, Dan and I both said that Burn Offerings it's his favorite, and it's in my top 3.
I like Burn Offerings better, just from a like emotional, personal perspective. But I think this record was a better step for the band as far as, you know, really selling what they were capable of doing on a record. And I like the faster pace. I like that it was a heavier album than we had experienced from Iced Earth at this point. The thrash elements start coming back in, but they're kind of refined.
Right.
And they're not like bare bones thrash. It's kind of like the difference between like Creator and Megadeth. You know, like Creator was like a really aggressive thrash band that, you know, was really thin, really bare bones, you know, heavy stuff. And you have a band like Megadeth that started off as somewhat more melodic in nature. And so now they're playing Megadeth thrash, whereas before they were playing Creator thrash. And so despite it maybe being good, if you're a huge thrash head, it wasn't as necessarily interesting to listen to as something like Something Wicked This Way Comes. And I thought that it was done well here and kind of reestablished them as a, you know, kind of a heavier band than what you necessarily would be used to. Because you got to think, I mean, this is the 90s, so like they're playing traditional heavy metal or power metal in an era where, you know, the idea was that you need to be as heavy as possible all the time. So like they're basically shirking death metal here. They're shirking thrash metal for the most part. They're really trying to stay as that band that's kind of outside of those circles and doesn't really fit into trends. And so I think in that they succeeded, especially with this record, because I think your average metalhead's going to listen to Something Wicked and think that, wow, this is great.
You're correct.
I want to check out more stuff by this band.
Much like how Rust in Peace is the first Megadeth album I'm going to give anybody, this is the album I'm going to give somebody if they ask me who is Iced Earth.
Absolutely.
So now we're on to Horror Show.
I like Horror Show, but it's only because I like horror movies.
Oh, no, that can't be the only reason why you like Horror Show. Dan is like the ultimate Death fanboy. So I think that might be part of it, because this is the first album that's got Richard Christie.
Who wants to talk about the connection?
And
Richard
Steve,
Christie.
Yep.
He's a goddamn god on earth.
That's not the only connection we got. We also got Steve DiGiorgio.
So your band is 2 parts death.
Yeah. So you already know that Dan's going to love this album.
I do love this album. I love the lyrical concepts. I like who's playing on it. Matt never fails to amaze me at how versatile he can become. Because on the Dark Saga, he sounded like, you know, like a goth singer, you know, like somebody that was always going to be dark and forlorn and hard to, you know, really connect with. But then you get to Horror Show, and it's kind of this like almost glammy, cheesy metal record about horror movies.
Yeah, this is like a straight ahead power metal album.
Oh, yeah. And I love it. I love it because it doesn't give 2 shits about what it is.
Color me surprised, because I was not expecting you to like this one.
Oh my God, I love this record because it's just pure cheese. And that's what I like about it. To me, this is what power metal bands should focus on.
Is the cheese and the fun?
Is the cheese and the fun. And we get that in spades here. But oh my God, listen to those drums. Performances that were way better than they had it really had any business being.
A bulk of the writing on this album was done by Matt Barlow.
Well, and you can tell that because it's not that finessed.
Right.
A lot of the shit is just like direct lifts from the horror movies that they're talking about, which is a little disappointing because I'm like, really, you didn't have some unique perspective on this? No. I just really liked Bram Stoker's Dracula, so I just lifted my favorite lines from that movie, and that's the fucking song.
I'm okay with that.
Let's all go get paid. You know,
I watch everything Gary Oldman's in, so I'm down with that.
Man of 1,000 Faces.
Yeah, you know, he lost his own voice.
Yep.
He didn't even know. He had to actually go back to a vocal coach to figure out what he originally sounded like.
But I think this record was just like bigger budget, bigger everything. It was arena rock, basically, in a time where you really couldn't sell it, you know? And but I loved this record. I thought that this was a huge step in the right direction for Iced Earth. And I would have loved to hear more albums from them where they were just having fun. Unfortunately, the Up Your Own Ass kind of erupts. You know, later the ass erupts. You know, later on.
What did you eat for dinner?
Right. And
Ribs.
I can't say this with a straight face though, because like the follow-up, let's talk about a couple of things before we get there.
Okay.
First of all, Matt Barlow gone.
Yes.
This was right around the September 11th attacks.
Yep.
And this band, as we know, is pretty patriotic.
And Matt's no different.
Matt's no different. He felt like, he could do a little bit more for good old USA than just be the singer of Iced Earth. So he decided to leave the band and become involved heavily in law enforcement.
Which, thank you for your service.
Yep, appreciate that.
That's, there's a lot of people that, of all walks of life wanted to do more after such a tragedy. So, it just, it made me appreciate him more. That here you are. You're a singer of a band that tours the world. Lots of people know who you are, and you're like, yep, I'm going to give up the rock star lifestyle because I think that I can offer more than just that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty fucking cool.
It's respectable. So, Matt's got real good since Burnt Offerings.
Yes, he has.
He was good on that record, but he was good on all the other ones too. Where do you go from there? This is one of those shit, we had a really great vocalist and now he's gone. We got to get another really great vocalist in right now.
We might go to my favorite living power metal vocalist.
So who do you call?
Tim the Ripper Owens.
Tim the fucking Ripper Owens.
God, Ripper is such a beast.
The one man who was qualified. It's kind of like Thor, right? Like he who raises the hammer, if he be worthy,
yeah,
shall inherit the power of Thor. Well, Tim the Ripper Owens had been worthy and lifted the hammer, the metal hammer, and he inherited the powers of Rob Halford.
It is kind of freaky, you hear him, when he's with Judas Priest, and you're like, well, you expect it there. And then you listen to this, and you're like, holy fucking shit, he's still Rob.
Okay, so patriotic album.
Yes.
The Glorious Burden.
Yes.
Was this 2001 or 2002?
Officially, 2004.
Oh, that's right, 2004, right?
January.
Because Matt would have left in 2001 after September 11th. Okay, cool.
Correct.
Sorry, my timeline's a little fuzzy.
No, it's okay.
But so The Glorious Burden has maybe the most patriotic cover work that you will ever see on an album.
I thought you were going to say cover song in the Star Spangled Banner's case.
Oh, no. Well, yeah. But the Glorious Burden, man, is a really cool album. To quote Roach Coach, it is not respectful of our time. Clocking in at 78 fucking minutes. And for guys it's a good thing that it was good and that I enjoyed it. Because holy shit, with what we do on this podcast every week, I ain't got no time for 70-minute fucking albums. So I listened to this thing in its entirety on July 4th several times. Now, every single song isn't about the American Revolution, but there's a lot that are.
Yeah, there's Attila of the Hun. And
there's some Civil War stuff. There's a 3-part song about Gettysburg to symbolize the 3-day battle, This record is about war. What's a better concept for a heavy metal record than war? Military history. This was interesting.
Yeah.
I found it fun from a historical sense because I'm a history nerd, and I found it enjoyable from a vocal sense. It's Tim the fucking Ripper Owens. What do you want? This was I would say this is better than what Matt would have put down on this.
Yes, I agree.
100%. This is like you've got a next level vocalist. I had described them as a B-level band that now has an A-level singer.
And the funny thing is, at least in my opinion, this is the best Ripper has ever sounded.
He sounds amazing. Yeah. 2004, modern for the time production. They really captured it, big time. And that's what I love about this record is it's big time. The song pace is faster. It's more thrashy. It's heavier. Tim sings, screams, whatever you want to call it, over this record, and just owns it 100%. I got a lot to say. The guitar solos are smoking. The riffs are sweet. They're memorable. I had a lot of fun with this record. I got nothing bad to say about it. It's the best thing that I've heard since Burnt Offerings, and in a completely different way.
Right. Yeah. This is number 2 on my list.
Yeah, so like it's because they kind of vary a little too much in their sound. Like it's almost like every album up to this point was just trying to redefine what the band was capable of. But this is some deep roots shit, you know. This sounds like a professional band that's been doing it for years, and they can put out a top quality product like this, like it's nothing. And I'm really surprised to hear the direction that it went after this, because for the most part, I mean, this is top level stuff and probably the best Iced Earth ever got. Am I wrong?
It's the yeah. There's lots of peaks and valleys. I put this on par with Something When Wicked This Way Comes. I think they're on par with each other. But this is definitely one of their peaks. This is such a good album. And it's such a, you know, I think what I like most about it is it's such a vehicle for the Ripper. You know, I think that's one of the things that even though John's kind of running the show, I think it's pretty fucking cool that he's like, you know what? Fuck, man. And the Ripper's singing this shit? Fucking, it's going to be whatever we can do to make the Ripper sound good.
As long as he sings what I wrote, we're good.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
With a vengeance.
God, it's so sick. I don't know how the fuck he sings the way he does sometimes. It's just unbelievable. I mean, even if you're not a big power metal guy, listen to this dude, you're going to go...
At this point, I would have appreciated hearing old Iced Earth albums re-recorded with the Ripper on vocals. They did that with Matt.
Yes, they did.
Not whole albums, but
pick and
the best songs.
Right.
It was awesome.
Yes, it was.
And, you know, I got nothing bad to say about that. But so that was 2004. They've got the Ripper on. The Ripper was still in Judas Priest at the time. And basically, Rob Halford, I guess, called Judas Priest and was like, come on, pop us home. And so they're like, okay, great. Well, see you, Tim. And then totally fine, because Tim was like, okay, great. Well, I've got this backup band, Iced Earth, in my pocket, and I can just go back and do that. It was almost like a Ronnie James Dio, Black Sabbath type of situation. And that was totally cool.
It's kind of funny. You just mentioned two of my favorite vocalists, and their stories kind of have a similar path on how things work.
All right, well, don't get excited. You know, keep your pants on.
I know.
But, you know.
I will take my pants off for the Dio episode.
Very good.
At least I'm not the only one.
2007. Up your own ass much?
God.
Let me read you the title of this album. Framing Armageddon, Something Wicked, Part 1.
Wait, I thought Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Already came.
Yep.
Oh.
But here it is again.
So is this a
No.
imagining?
No.
It is an extension.
Did we hire James Cameron to do a sequel?
No. You know how I was talking about how like glass of water poured out on the floor?
This
is taking the glass of water and then going outside and getting the hose and deciding that the whole floor needs a fucking scrub down. And this record is, I get that whenever dude was writing it, not dudes, sitting down writing this and being like, holy shit, this is some next level shit. This is it, guys. This is what is going to propel us forward. We already have the best vocalist that we are capable of having. So he's going to sing this shit with conviction. He's going to love it. The concept was very well received.
I don't care what style of music you play. If you do not play mambo, you cannot start your album out with a mambo and expect me to take you seriously.
Well, the intro to the album is the best part of the album.
Because Tito Puente could have played it on a Saturday night?
I'm getting prepped up, though. I'm getting psyched. Dude, the last two records have been great. This is going to be great, too. There's no reason to not think that going into it.
It's pretentious. It's boring. It's up their own ass. I mean, it's whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. Because it's just, they think it's much better than what the rest of the world thinks it is.
1 hour, 8 minutes. Fuck.
No more Richard Christie, too, by the way.
Richard Christie's gone.
Yep.
Bummer.
Yep.
We got a choir of Tim the Ripper Owen still. Does that count?
Okay with that. I don't mind hearing the Ripper sing, but I want to hear him like it. I want to hear him love it. And there's not a lot of love here. This is like, fuck, okay, so you want me to sing this shit? I mean, I'll do it because I like money.
Hey, Dan, can I have some money?
This is okay. Like, his vocal delivery is serviceable for sure. This is one of the cases, though, where I'm like, Matt Barlow might have done it better. I don't know if you can do a lot to redeem these songs. This is just long, convoluted bullshit about a concept that we're not into. Okay, so like Iron Maiden puts out Brave New World and everybody goes fucking apeshit. What's the difference? It's if you're gonna be a band that talks about literary topics or historical topics, the reason that is so important to a listener is because we already know at least a little bit about it. And so we're kind of plugged into the concept, and it gives us something to be excited about. The 3 songs on Something Wicked, I don't feel like do a good enough job of establishing a world and universe like a fantasy writer would do. Because that's essentially what they're trying to do here is create this world, this universe, this idea, this concept, and it's like not strong enough to last. Let's use a Tolkien reference because fuck you, power metal. So it's like too much. It's like not enough butter spread over too much bread. It's like you don't have a compelling enough concept to stretch it over 2 fucking albums. You're gonna call this thing part 1? Why don't you wait a minute and see if anybody likes it? Because you may not be willing to throw that part 2 out there just yet.
Right. It's the term is called buying in. We're not buying in. That's the problem. Obviously John bought in because he's the one that fucking wrote it.
Right.
But nobody else is buying in. And I think you can tell that in the vocal delivery. And then that's why you're thinking, well, maybe Matt could do a better job. It's not, I don't know if Matt could have done a better job. It's just because I don't think Tim was buying in.
It's debatable. I mean, this is the first album that I'm like, yeah, I think Matt might have sounded better on it. Especially when you consider the next album, which we're not at yet. But, I think he hadn't really bought into the concept, at least the Ripper didn't. And, I think that this could have been great, but it's just kind of convoluted with all these other elements that didn't really belong to the Iced Earth sound before. I always thought that Iced Earth was a good band at being kind of aggressive, but also including a lot of melody into what they did. And on this record, they do that, but the melody is not guitar driven like it had been on the previous records, and they've introduced all these other fucking elements into it to try to make it sound much grander than it really is. You look at Horror Show, and you're like, this is a cheesy, fun 80s movie kind of soundtrack. But it's okay, well, we're gonna take all those same cheesy elements from Horror Show, and we're gonna play it straight. Act as if this is creating some sort of epic atmosphere, and it comes off as cheesy, which is fine if you feel like that's the intent, but I don't feel like that was the intent.
I think they're obviously being serious this time around, and I didn't like it. That's the best way to put it. I just didn't care for it. I think they were looking for this massive, grandiose thing, and we just weren't impressed.
No, not really, and I didn't really have I don't have some kind of weird reason for feeling that way, I was totally on board on Glorious Burden, so this record had to be different, I don't know, weird riffing with odd pauses that I'm supposed to get excited about but I'm not. That's just it bothers me, so I'm okay, well, they fucked up here, but maybe it's okay.
All right, The Crucible of Man.
What, you mean The Crucible of Man Something Wicked Part 2?
Yep. And I was like, oh fuck.
Oh, it's still going on?
Yep, same shit, different singer.
Do we hire James Cameron this time?
No, well, so the Ripper's out and Matt's back because I guess law enforcement, I don't know about what he did
I
with
think
that,
it was from fan feedback, and I think those fans are stupid because Ripper, that's why.
Yeah, but this sucks.
Oh, it's horrible.
More up its own ass than Part 1.
Which I don't know how that's humanly possible, unless it you went so far up your ass you came out.
Well, here's a
and
glaring.
Then you went back up your ass again.
Here's a glaring example, though, because obviously these were recorded at the same time, right? They had to have been because of how quickly they came out in succession. This was 2008. Previous album was 2007. Recorded February through April of 2007. So come on, guys. Different singer. This answers my question, right? Was Matt better than the Ripper with this concept, with these albums? Was he all in? Not really. I liked hearing him again. I'm not gonna lie. I loved the album with the Glorious Burden with the Ripper. I thought that was really cool. But you got to think like Matt Barlow is what Iced Earth sounds like, the good Iced Earth. So yeah, I could get behind this one. I mean, it's not a steaming pile of shit by any stretch. I mean, I listen to black metal, so like I've heard albums that are steaming piles of shit. This isn't that, but it is very much like I could listen to this, or I could listen to Tales from the Twilight World by Blind Guardian. I've got options, And you take an A-level band like Blind Guardian and you compare it to this, and it's just like, I don't know where they're coming from. I'm not really on board with the concept anymore. I thought it was cool initially, but now it's just been shoved down my throat so much that I kind of want to hear you guys talk about different shit. Like, that's what I like about Iron Maiden-esque bands, is the sheer variety of topics that are covered. And this, it's just like, fuck, you guys are going on and on and on. Part of what made an album like The Glorious Burden so successful for me was the fact that it was about historical events that actually took place, so it was easy to get more emotionally connected to those.
Because you could do your research.
But here we're off in fucking elves and dragons and fantasy world. I mean, not necessarily those elements, but like, it was just too much non-relatable content.
So this is generic fantasy story.
Well, yeah, like you look at horror show and it's like, yeah, that's kind of the same thing. It's cheesy, but like at least we've seen all those movies,
right?
There's a certain connection to lyrical themes like this that doesn't carry over when you've gone completely off the map and you're trying to create your own content based on that. So yeah, sorry, I listened to it. I didn't care.
You ready for Dystopia?
I am.
Yep.
I am too, just not this one.
Why, was there another band that put out an album called Dystopia?
Megadeth.
One that's got, some mega death going on?
So I will say this, the nude singer, he's pretty.
He's a beautiful man.
Yes, he is. I could care less at this point.
I think Stu sounds good. I think Dystopia was a more straight-ahead metal record with a new singer, with new energy,
Yeah, I'm not saying it was bad.
Would have liked to hear Matt back for more than just one album that sucked balls.
Yes, agreed with that.
Total waste of a vocalist, in my opinion.
I'm starting to think that the last two records were planned that way.
Possible. I mean, I don't know.
There had to be a point in the writing process where we were going to be super epic, and we're going to invite our old vocalist back to do the second half because the fans are clamoring for that. But that doesn't explain why we've already moved on to the next guy.
I don't know. Dystopia was like a more straight-ahead power metal record for me. Clocks in at 46 minutes. It gets the job done. It's aggressive. It's fast. I like the singer, personally. I like the solos. I like that it just kind of hits me like a Judas Priest album or an Iron Maiden album where it's just 46 minutes of uncompromising speed metal. I love that about it. And I like that Stu's more aggressive than Matt was. I don't know if anybody's more aggressive than the Ripper, but, Stu here does a really great job.
Yeah, he's not bad. My only frustration with this is the bookends of this album are still part of the
Something Wicked.
I know. I'm just like, okay.
Was this the album that had the
over
song about like zombies attacking a town? Like, I guess you wouldn't know, but
yeah, that would require me reading lyrics.
There's like, now we're not focusing on the Something Wicked concept totally, but now we're doing these little like weird, like your Rogue One or your Han Solo story of Something Wicked, and Something Wicked is not Star Wars.
Hold on. I am not John Drake, so Solo and
if you piss me off, you could be.
In Rogue One, yeah, that's right. In Rogue One, those are way better than 7 and 8 could ever dream of being.
That's not the argument that I'm making. The argument that I'm making is that this is not as compelling of a story to warrant side stories.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that's what I'm getting at with. I'm not going to debate the Star Wars
Geoff,
movies with you tonight.
Generic fantasy story is kind of like sports ball. You just kind of have to get it.
Is it like fantasy football?
Oh. All right. I got to ask you guys, did anybody, because I didn't hear it, the Trooper cover? Because I'm kind of curious now. I'm going to go find that. Because that was a like DLC that was included in certain retail.
That wasn't on their Tribute to the Gods covers record?
I don't think so.
Which had a really bad version of Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath on it?
Yeah, no, because this one's got Stu singing, and I'm really curious to hear Stu do the Trooper.
I just think the modern heaviness and the speed and the full-on ahead of this record really saved it.
Yeah.
It didn't have the bogged down feeling that the last two records had. Like, I could just listen to this, enjoy it, without having to really think about what the concept was. And,
yeah, this one isn't nearly as pretentious as the others. I mean, I know that's kind of my favorite word with some of this stuff, but it's true on this one. It's like you said, it's more straight ahead. I think he realized, well, fuck, I kind of lost I wasn't losing fans because Ripper was on it instead of Matt. No, it was because I wrote shit. That's why we lost fans. So why don't I write something that's actually decent music and people will pay attention again? And lo and behold, better music, more fans. How about that?
2014, Plagues of Babylon. Why is this record about something wicked again?
Half
Seriously.
of it. I know.
Have you guys ever seen a movie called Frozen that has a song called Let It Go?
Oh, God.
I would rather hear a cover of that song by Iced Earth than listen to another song about this fucking stupid concept. Like, it's dragging the band down at this point. Like, we talked about Dystopia, like, and how that was a great record because it was simple. I talked about how I liked Horror Show because it was just good fun. This is taking yourself so damn seriously all the time.
Well, the interesting thing is that John and Stu collaborate on everything on this album.
Oh, yeah, they're best. They're like the me and Geoff of power metal. They love each other.
Yeah, they do, which is cool. I like the fact that after all of these years that John finally has somebody that can be his because he needed that.
Don't say on the podcast.
Okay, done.
Okay.
Sorry, my bad. Take that out.
Yeah, I think that I'm sorry, it was too funny not to laugh at though.
Sorry,
it's better than what I was going to say.
But it's like, what did I like about Dystopia? That it was 46 minutes long. It was a nice, longer drive to work type of album, and then you get to Plagues of Babylon, and you're back at 62 fucking minutes, and half of it's about something wicked, and it's like.
So let's talk about generic fantasy story for a second. If we took all the songs off of the different albums and put them in one playlist and listened to them, would it be a good record? If the answer is no, drop it.
I'll try it, but I don't think you're gonna like it.
The answer's no.
So
you come to the studio and tell me I wrote another one, Joe. I'm gonna say, Dan, does it make the other ones sound better? No? Drop it.
No, and it's like I've already heard 3 different singers now talk about this fucking fantasy world. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe if you'd had the same personnel on all of it and everybody was really invested and into it, it could have been really great because of the love and collaboration that would have existed throughout it. But really what you have is this one guy that's like, okay, I spent 6 months in a fucking cabin in the woods and here you guys go. This is the new shit. And they're like, well, yeah, but isn't this basically the old shit, just with, like, in different order? Shut the fuck up.
No, it's even better.
Don't talk to me, Richard Christie. I don't give a shit what you say.
Abigail, this is not.
I'm just making this up. I don't know if any of these interactions happened. But the thing is that, like, you've got to let it go at this point, man. Like, you've got a good record hiding in Plagues of Babylon. But it's the part of the record that, like, isn't the Something Wicked concept. You need to let go of that shit.
Yeah, and there's even 2 covers in this album, too.
Yeah, like, it's just... Right, well, that's padding. But, I mean, like, John Schaefer, if I can talk to you directly, I just want you to know, man, that I really appreciate what you do. I do. For the most part, I don't have any, real issues. You gave me burnt offerings, man, and I appreciate that. Thank you. But you got to let this shit go, dude. Like, you're writing fan fiction here and selling it like a blockbuster. And that's not how the rest of us are perceiving it.
Hey, that's how 50 Shades of Grey works.
Well, I appreciate that you've got good friends. You're the fucking guitar player from Iced Earth, the guy that's behind everything. Nobody's going to question you. You're like the George Lucas of power metal, right? He's not. He's more like the Uwe Boll,
Uwe
Boll of
Uwe
power metal. And like, it's not that he doesn't have a good idea every now and again. It's just that sometimes you need a support system that's going to be honest with you about what's a good idea and what's not a good idea. And like I said, man, you need to let it go. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not going to go into some big thing about how you wronged me and how I'm going to forgive you and be friends or whatever. I don't think that's necessary. I just want to give some very clear, unbiased advice and just say, look, dude, you need to drop it real quick because I like Iced Earth and I want to tell everybody that they're a great band, but it's getting kind of hard, getting kind of difficult over here on my side.
Well, guess what? In 2017, he took your advice.
He did.
Incorruptible. For 20, it's taken 20 fucking years, but he finally has figured out, maybe not everybody else is into this as much as I am.
You guys did it. You somehow released an album that was up its own ass, but it wasn't about some shit that we didn't care about. Incorruptible is a fun record. It deals with a lot of fun concepts like religion and corruption and all that good shit that you get out of a good story. Not a concept record to my knowledge.
No, it's not a concept record, but there is something that makes me worry about the next record.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in a minute. I like this record. I think Stu sounds good. I think the band sounds heavy. They got that nice 2017 production. And I don't really have a lot to say about it in that, like, obviously I love it more than Plagues of Babylon, but that isn't saying much in that, like, I find this record to be highly serviceable and a huge step in the right direction. I don't necessarily know if it's definitive Iced Earth, though. I think it's just kind of like, okay, we did good, then we fucked up, then we did good again. But that's kind of like saying Death Magnetic is a way better record than Saint Anger. This band has a lot of issues as far as just kind of rehashing the same shit over and over again. And I take issue to that when I have to listen to all of it in 1 week.
Yeah, that's actually the biggest takeaway I had when listening to this discography. I've always listened to them, an album here, an album there, because I've listened to them for a long time. Listening to it back to back in an entire week is a daunting task.
Yeah, and we actually took 2 weeks on this one.
Yes, we did.
Because I knew we were going to need the extra time, and it just really, I don't know, man. Like, I just didn't connect with me that well. I think it's good. I think it sounds heavy. I don't have a problem with it, but, like, I'm so done with Iced Earth at this point.
Right.
And, with a good band, I don't feel like I should feel that way. Because some bands we talk about, I finish the discography and I'm clamoring for more. And with Iced Earth, I just kind of feel like, maybe it's not going to get there.
Yeah, and
they still haven't put out that album.
Well, no, they put out that album when it comes for me.
Burnt Offerings, but that was fucking 20 years ago, man.
Well, no, there's 3 albums for me that I will still listen to regularly. But we were talking about, what does the future hold for them? And I wanted to go back to, there's one thing that makes me worry. Song number 6 is called The Relic Part 1. So I'm just waiting. I'm like, is the next album going to be nothing but the fucking Relic the whole fucking time?
If this shit somehow connects back to something wicked.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's going to be like the next version of something wicked is going to be the Relic.
If this shit connects in any way to something wicked, I'm a grown-ass man and I'm going to get over it and I'm just not going to buy the record.
You're just out.
But I'm out. I'm like, guys, you tried really hard for years, and I appreciate you, but just hang it up, man. We're done.
I'm a big concept album guy. I think that's been pretty well established. But this particular concept that they've run for 2 decades, it just didn't get me. Couldn't hook me.
I want to meet the guy that it did hook, because I don't get it. I want to know who bought into this. Do people go to Iced Earth shows and find out they're going to play all of Something Wicked, and they get excited like, Rush just started playing Tom Sawyer? Like,
I think
are they
like
going to play
Dream Theater
2112
fans.
in its entirety? Like, I want to meet that guy because I haven't met that guy yet.
I think they're like Dream Theater fans. I think everything the band puts out is fucking great, in their opinion. And this is a hard episode for us because, again, our goal is not to be negative. But, like, some of these bands, like, because, I mean, I honestly had a much better opinion of Iced Earth prior to doing this episode than I did whenever I listened to it. Because when you lay it all out together and you measure it all at one time, you start noticing things like, wow, they really didn't progress in 3 years. And it's not that anybody in Iced Earth is a bad player or a bad singer or any of that stuff. But it's just you've got a bunch of musicians together that want to be in a band and they want to do this cool stuff, but they don't click like a great band will click. A great band has a perfect combination of people in it, and that's why we're so into Death, because they had almost a different lineup on every record, but still somehow captured that magic every time.
Yeah, that's highly unusual.
Right. Whereas, like with a band like Iced Earth, it's like they tried and tried and tried and tried, but at the end of the day, it's still one guy that writes all of it, and if he's not willing to change, then nobody else is going to change either.
It's frustrating. It's almost like it's the revolving door of people that are playing on these albums because of John just not playing nice with others, and whenever somebody else has got an opinion, he's just like, fuck you, I don't want to hear it. Is
kind of like somebody else,
yeah. Is Stu a yes man, and that's the reason why he's stuck around and why he's getting writing credits? I don't know any of this.
Or they have the same vision,
Yeah, they're the same vision. It's just.
But I will say, I think those
questions.
two did click. Like when I'm talking about that magic that people want, the last 3 Iced Earth records I think are
adequate,
amazingly consistent, and they really haven't been a consistent band throughout their career.
Right.
And I think that is that is testament to where the band could go. It's just that you have a band as old as Iced Earth, and it's kind of like, is the album that they're going to put out in 2019 going to be the thing that makes them a great band? I don't think it is, because they've had all this time. And I'm not saying their discography is total shit. It's enjoyable if you're into this kind of music, but there are other bands out there that are doing what Iced Earth is doing much better than Iced Earth is doing it. That's my final thought, by the way. I don't want to do a separate segment on it.
Geoff, what about you?
I kind of follow up on that. There's 3 fantastic albums they have. The problem is it's the quote-unquote diamond in the rough. You got to go through a lot of their, because they have 11 full-length albums. Going through all that mess to find the 3 fantastic albums, most people aren't going to put forth that effort. Once you start putting a couple of bad albums out in a row, or even just one bad album, people are out. And, I've stuck around with them mainly because of those 3 albums. The rest of the stuff, I could just take it or leave it. It's kind of frustrating because you want it to be good, and I'm sure John wants it to be good as well, but John just needs to be able to have a wider vision instead of getting, because he's got tunnel vision on certain things.
Yeah, I don't think dude wakes up in the morning and is like, I'm going to make a shit album today.
No, but it becomes a shit album because he's got the blinders on and he's not looking at anything else, and that's the frustrating thing for me. They could be so much more. They should have been so much more over, the past 3 or 4 decades, and they haven't.
What about you, Joe?
I think about Iced Earth the same way I think about Savatage. I mentioned it earlier. There's something about them that doesn't sound as good as the other bands in the room. And I feel like somebody is listening to this and thinking it's the best fucking thing ever. But I can't think of who that person is. I know who Savatage is. No one has ever said, dude, you got to listen to Savatage. But there's a shit ton of people that have said, you need to listen to TSO. I don't know who this is for. Because like you said, there are other bands that do this not even way better, but better. For me, Iced Earth might be a hidden gem, but definitely not all of it. It might be the band to pull out when you've listened to everything else there is to hear in power metal on a binge in the middle of the summertime. We don't have any power metal left to listen to. Hang on, break the glass, put on this copy of Something Wicked or The Burnt Offering. And that's my final thought. Geoff, what's your album of the week?
Phenotype by Textures. Please check it out.
Dan, what about you?
I'm going to go with Unteachers, a human comedy. Listened to that a lot this week.
I did too. Fantastic album.
My Ticket Home, Strangers Only.
That's a good one.
I'm having a fucking week.
Very good.
And on that note, this has been episode 73 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.
Give me your money.
$1 gets you into that exclusive album review feed, along with other available perks. In 2017, Decibel Geek brought us Rock N Pod Expo in Nashville, Tennessee. This summer, they're doing it again. Rock N Pod Expo 2 on August 25th. Tell us about it, Dan.
We couldn't be more thrilled to be appearing at Rock N Pod this year. In an effort to help support this amazing event, we are throwing in some perks for you guys to help raise the funds necessary to make this event happen. A $35 donation on behalf of Discography Discussion to the Rock N Pod Expo gets you a limited edition Discography Discussion hand-painted beer glass and the option to choose what band we talk about in an upcoming episode of the podcast. This also includes your admission to the expo, access to an exclusive podcast made only for contributors to the event, and we can't wait to meet some of you guys there in person. We'll be hanging out chatting all day. Keep in mind on these perks, there are only 3 of them available, so act fast, and we hope to see you there.